Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Leif Van Boven and his work as a psychologist. So, starting with his education, Leif Van Boven was first interested in psychology in his Intro to Psychology course at the University of Washington in 1995. He graduated magna cum laude with a bachelor's in science. His initial interest in psychology was based mainly on how there are ways to observe and measure the way the brain works and how it impacts behavior and attitudes. He was also invested in research analysis in psychology and how statistic principles evaluate human behavior. After graduating from Washington, Van Boven then earned his PhD in psychology from Cornell University. He then started his career as an assistant professor in British Columbia from 2000 to 2002. He also worked as an assistant professor at Cornell and University of Colorado Boulder. In 2009, he became a professor at University of Colorado Boulder, in which he taught courses in the neuroscience and psychology department. While still working as a professor, Van Boven became the co-director of Center for Creative Climate Communication and Behavior Change, which is an organization in Colorado that promotes positive and influential work for climate change. A lot of Van Boven's work throughout his career is heavily influenced or focused on topics like climate change and environmental psychology. So from his college education to his time as professor, Van Boven has been involved in numerous organizations and movements that are notable additions to the work that he does. So these are just a few examples of some of the work that he's done in addition to his teaching and his general research. The courses that Van Boven has taught are mainly centered around emotions and behavioral psychology, though his personal research is often centered around environmental psychology and things that we can do to improve climate change. In the following studies, you will see that Van Boven uses many different types of methods to conduct his research. He often uses surveys and observational experiments for his studies, and a lot of these studies do take place at the University of Colorado in the EDGI lab, which stands for Emotion, Decision, Judgment, and Intuition. So in this study, Van Boven conducted experiments to measure students' emotional response to determine whether their emotions were stronger during certain events versus others. He did this by asking students to record their emotions following several events. Van Boven found that students' emotions were stronger leading up to the event versus after the event. In 2018, Van Boven published this study on psychological barriers to bipartisan public support for climate policy. He worked on this study with Philip Arrett and David Sherman. The purpose for this study was to observe and determine the effects of partisanship and party loyalty on people's support for climate change legislation. Van Boven collected surveys from both parties and found that in both parties, the policies of the respective party were supported, while the opposing party's policies were devalued. Van Boven then hypothesized that decoupling policy from party identity can help with climate change. So in conclusion, Leif Van Boven is a remarkable young psychologist that has clearly been an asset to the University of Boulder as well as general psychological research. He especially has done a lot of impressive amount of research in the environmental psychology field and conducted a lot of research and raised awareness for climate change.